Hi there, my name is Ronan, and today I'm going to cover a question that I got in Github. And the question is, how do I start using recipes in order to provision physical machines over SSH? So, recipes is a part of a project called Re-cipes, which is a complete end-to-end system lifecycle management, from provisioning machines to creating virtual machines, provisioning them, monitoring them, and even running security analysis. It's a full REPL-based reloader workflow, which means that we use the REPL to execute commands. Those commands are sometimes executed remotely, and using the reloaded workflow, we can reload our code and don't need to restart anything. It includes recore, regent, and recipes, among other components. And it has a learning curve, but I hope that once you see the demo, it will give you some motivation. A little bit on the architecture. Recore is a REPL that is running on either our local machine or on a server in a Tmax session. It manages one or more regent agents, which basically allows us to run arbitrary functions remotely, serialized functions, and the data is persisted into Elasticsearch. Recipes is, like I said, is a sub-project of Re-cipes. It includes the provisioning scripts that we can write using Clojure. It runs standalone or from a Recore REPL. The second use case is much more useful in my mind. And it uses Recore resources, which are serialized functions for all sorts of resources, from package management, service management, file, and etc. Like I said, it uses serialized functions, so we send functions over the wire. And it supports mainly, or actually only, the latest Ubuntu releases. Again, the main idea is that this is the OS that most people use on the server, but nothing stops us from adding additional operating systems. In order to manage a host, we need to have the following prerequisites in place. We need to have a Re-cipes local user. We need to have our management SSH key deployed into that host. The user need to have a no pass WD sudo access. We need to have GRE11 installed. That could be either OpenJDK, Amazon Corretto, or any other distribution. And we need to have a systemd user service for regent. On the management host, we need to have lane and JDK11. Please do make sure to have the latest lane, mainly due to issues with code reloading in older versions. And we need to have Elasticsearch. That could run on Docker. We need to have HTTPS enabled and basic authentication. So let's take a look at a quick demo. So what we can see here is the REPL. This is the actual Recore instance. We can list our host, and we can see that we have currently two hosts. One of them is Elasticsearch. The second one is base, and we have the IDs of the host here. The IDs are shorthanded because like in Git, we can just reference the shorthand of the ID. And we can SSH into the host, like I did here. And while this host is a VM, this could be a physical host. Now, in order to run recipes in standalone mode, we need to have a couple of things, like I mentioned. First thing, we need to have Java. We need to have a no pass WD for the user. We also need to have from the recipes project, we need to have the resources directory, which contains the configuration and a bunch of templates that we use in our provisioning script. We need to copy that into the temp directory. And we also need to have the recipes executable. Now, in order to provision the host, we use sudo. And in this case, the profile that we use is Re-cipes image. This profile will set up the systemd service that we need in order to deploy regent. This profile is also used when we build VM images. So this will run, and it will, in addition to the systemd service, it will perform some basic hardening, firewall enablement, and stuff like that. And now if we go back, we can see that the systemd service is enabled. Now we can deploy our agent. So when we deploy our agent, we provide the ID. Now I've already built the agent, but if you want to build the agent, you go to the regent directory and you run binary, and that builds the binary for you. In fact, let's do that. It takes like a second. Now as you can see, once I build the agent, it's very easy to make changes to it and redeploy it. So yeah, if we need to make changes to the agent, there's nothing stopping us from just updating the agent running on our machines. And here what I'm doing is, again, I'm running a function and passing in the host into which the agent will be deployed and providing the agent location, and I'm deploying the agent. As I run a list, you can see that the host is not registered, and in the log it will be registered in a second. And now we can see that the host is registered. Now we can basically run arbitrary functions on the base machine. It's important to note that Regions uses elliptic curve encryption over 0MQ, so the connection is secure. And we do use the SSH as the best channel, so the communication is secure between both ends. Now if we want to run, basically we want to run the profile, the base profile. On this host, we want the type of the machine, in this case it's base, so I can provision it. And this will basically run the profile on the machine remotely using serialized functions. If I'll enable debug, we'll be able to see the function as they run. And as you can see, we can see all the serialized functions, their output, their arguments. We can see if they failed. We can even see the time that it took for them to run. And we can analyze this data on the back end and basically know how to optimize performance or where issues have happened, etc. Now we'll switch debug off. And this profile basically installs Tmax, ZSH, and a number of other utilities. And as you can see here, I'm running bash. And once it will be over, I'll be able to SSH into the machine, and we'll be able to see that we have ZSH and the other utilities running. It will take another minute or two. And once it's running, we'll get this is an asynchronous process, and we get the confirmation here that it's worked correctly. So now let's SSH into that instance again. And as we can see, we have ZSH, we have Z, we have Tmax, and a bunch of other utilities that the base profile has provided us. Now, like I said, this host was a VM, so I created it in Recore, but let's say that we want to add a physical host. When we want to add a physical host, we need to add it. So we have a command called add, and we can just run add and provide in basically all the details for the machine. And this is the type of the machine, the operating system, and the user of the machine, the domain, and the host name, the profile, and the show description. Once we run that, we can see the machine is listed. When we want to add more details, like the IP address, we use the fill function. And the fill functions allows us basically to manipulate this hash map. As you can see, a system is basically just a plain old hash map. And what I'll do here is I'll pass again the shortened ID, pass the IP address, and now we have the IP address. Now I can deploy Regent into this machine and provision it. Again, using recipes. Another nice thing that I want to show about recipes, and what is the cool thing about all of this, is that we can actually go and change the code on the fly. So let's say I'm going to take this clone command, I'm going to paste it here, and I'm going to clone it into temp foo. Now I'll run reset. And as you can see, the code has been reloaded. We'll run provision again. We'll SSH into it. That will take a minute or two. And here we can see that the change was made. Of course, we can revert back, and this gives us the ability to move rather quickly when we write our provisioning code. And this is like the way that I would recommend using recipes. So that's about it. I hope that you got a good overview of what recipes can do, and I'm happy to get more questions. See ya.